everyone. This is Talkback. I'm Sheila Horvitz, and this summer we've been doing a whole bunch of shows on the live stream, which is like a Zoom platform. The whole world is Zooming this summer. We're at home, we're social distancing, we're being careful, and we have so many issues to take care of in this world. Today we have a wonderful show, two people who are involved in a program that transforms lives through sports, through tennis. Art transforms lives, drama transforms lives, and these people work for a program in Israel that takes young kids and transforms their lives through the sport of tennis. Let me introduce them to you. First, we have Jackie Gladstein. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Sheila. It's great to be with you.
And Jackie is the Executive Vice President of Global Development for, this is a lot of words I memorized, the Israeli Tennis and Education Centers Foundation, right?
That's correct.
All right. And you've had a career in development and fundraising for many causes over the years, and we're going to get to that. But now we want to introduce Phyllis Pullman, who's an old dear friend from high school and college, Queens College. Yay, go Queens College, right?
Yay for both of those, and yay for friends of long standing. Could we leave out the old, even though it's true?
All right, well, it's true. You got to be realistic, Phyllis, And so Phyllis, you can't interrupt Phyllis the end of August because she's always at the Al Thrash Stadium. She's always at the U.S. Open. She's a tennis fiend, a tennis fanatic. That's her favorite sport. And so she came across this wonderful cause through her interest in tennis. So let's turn to Jackie first. Jackie, tell us something about your background, what it is in your background that led you to what you do now, and then give us a little bit of a brief explanation of the tennis centers in Israel.
I will do that. Thank you, Sheila. It's an honor to be with you. So my background has been, my career has been in Jewish communal service. I'm a social worker by training. I've worked within the Jewish community. I've actually only held 4 jobs in my lifetime in a 35+ year career. And my passion are Israel children education. And that's the organizations that I've worked for have centered around that triumvirate. And I joined the organization 8 years ago after they searched for a global director of resource development, because I felt that it was a very, very clever way of bringing in children who were vulnerable, who came from disadvantaged backgrounds, and helping to transform their lives through tennis and the framework and the life lessons that they learn through tennis, as well as through educational programs that the Israel Tennis and Education Centers offer. And for me, what I get up thinking about every day is how we're going to change children's lives that day, and how we're going to generate the visibility here abroad in North America for the Israel Tennis and Education Centers and the support to provide these children with the essential services.
Okay. I want to hear from Phyllis now. We'll get back to you on the history of this organization. Okay. So Phyllis, tell me, you're at the stadium watching your tennis, and one day, many years ago, someone approaches you about this organization. Tell us about this encounter.
Okay, actually, I was just leaving the U.S. Open when it was still being played at Forest Hills. We won't talk about how long ago that was. And there were these gentlemen out there who had these envelopes, and they were giving them to people. And they said, we're starting a new organization. We hope we can count on your support. And I took a look at the envelope, and I saw that the organization that they were trying to start dealt with 3 things very close to my heart, and I will give them to you in alphabetical order. I am not prioritizing. Children, Israel, and tennis. I mean, how could I not get involved? I mean, it was kind of a win-win or should I say, win-win-win situation. And that was the beginning. And from that day, which was more than 40 years ago, oh, yes, I do have to admit that, don't I? I started off kind of slowly with my involvement, and it's become more and more of an involvement. I've now been to the tennis centers in Israel, and it's just so marvelous to see, to know of the programs, to see the kids, to meet the kids. It's almost beyond words, really. And it's just that so many areas are being addressed, and I'm not going to start listing them for you now because I know you have some other, you have a slideshow, Jackie may address it, but it's amazing that all these social and educational life things, kids at risk, that's with special needs, all of these issues are addressed, and these kids are helped through tennis. It's just a wonderful means to some great ends.
Okay, so now let's go back to Jackie. Tell us, as Phyllis was trying to explain from her first encounter with the movement, tell us about how it was founded and what's the mission? What was the mission statement of the people? What did they want to do in Israel over 40 years ago?
It's a really great question. And Phyllis, I guess I would have revealed the number of years ago that you were approached for the organization anyway, when I say the organization is 45 plus years old. And it was founded by 6 volunteers whose mission at that point was to bring tennis to the masses in Israel. They never dreamed that, 45 years later, they would have 14 tennis centers and they would serve 20,000 plus children a year, and that over 500,000 children have gone through our program over the past 45 years. What they quickly came to realize after they opened the first center was that tennis was a framework for life. It taught skills of perseverance and determination, and it improved children's focus and concentration on the court and off the court, in school and on the court. And they learned so many life values. It was really a building character. It's also used as a platform to provide equal opportunities for all children so that they can succeed in life. So children that come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different religions, different races, they're all brought together in one place and they're treated equally. They have the same benefits and they can succeed in whatever they choose to do. With the help of our loving and devoted staff, many of whom grew up at the tennis centers. So we have the alumni giving back to the current children.
So interesting because, if you're an American kid growing up in a disadvantaged neighborhood in New York or California, wherever, tennis is something outside of your reach. In many instances, it's a sport of more wealthy people. So to have the sport accessible to kids in need, to kids in disadvantaged homes, to kids that have disabilities is a wonderful, wonderful project because it enhances their life and gives them something to do outside of their circumstances. So I wanted to ask you, how do you find the kids? Where are they? And what makes up the group of kids that you service? How many do you service in Israel with tennis?
So we have 14 centers. 13 of those centers are located in very underprivileged areas, either in underprivileged cities of Israel or in underprivileged neighborhoods in larger cities in Israel. The center is open to everyone. The children are recruited from schools. We work with other NGOs in Israel who refer children at risk, who refer children with special needs. We go into specific neighborhoods and we do demonstration tennis programs and we bring the children in. We also work in kindergartens. We are in over 300 kindergartens across the state of Israel to teach motor development to the children and to the teachers, because physical education is not mandated at that age. And we also bring those children to the tennis centers. So they come from professionals in the community. They come from marketing that we do, outreach, and the best is referrals from other people. 20,000 children are being served by our centers per year, which is a lot of children.
Right. And I noticed that you've got a different set of categories for all the different groups that you deal with. At risk, coexistence, girls at risk empowerment, high performance, immigrant children, kindergarten, and special needs. Why don't you talk about a couple of those things? But before we do, I want to hear from Phyllis. Phyllis, what is there about tennis that enhances your life, that enhances your ability to understand winning and losing, hard work, skills? Tell us about it. Why is it such a great topic?
Well, first of all, I'm not restricted to tennis. I love baseball and football and love my Yankees and my Giants. I do love tennis. I am going to very much miss being able to go to the U.S. Open this year. I just, let me also say, I think one of the things that impresses me so, and impressed me so at the beginning about the tennis centers, is that every child in Israel can attend.
Mm-hmm.
It does not matter what the background is. It is open to all the children. And in fact, one of my favorite programs really is the coexistence program. It's so true when kids don't have these prejudices that sometimes adults will thrust upon them. And it's just wonderful to see these kids together. And I think, and Jackie, I'm sure will agree, that to me, one of the most impressive things coming out of the tennis centers is when we have our alumni, and particularly some who've come from backgrounds where perhaps you wouldn't think that they would necessarily be accepted or allowed, and just listening to them tell how much they've learned about coexistence is just heartwarming. And I'm not sure if I answered your question, because you see, to me, it's not all about winning. And yes, I love tennis as a sport, but it's accomplishing all these other things, but allowing the kids to do it while they're having fun, while they're learning the tennis, and it also gives them the outreach to all these other children that they might not meet in school or wherever.
Okay. So Jackie, before we get to the slideshow that we want to have, why don't you describe, Phyllis touched on the coexistence, I'm assuming Arabs and Jews, kids getting along together with their sport. Why don't you describe some of the other categories that I listed before and how you bring that into the program?
I'd be happy to. I just want to say one thing about coexistence. We have inclusive centers, and for me, coexistence is much broader than Arabs and Jewish children coming together. It's about children, as Phyllis said, of a variety of different backgrounds coming together, all learning at a very young age to accept one another, to treat each other with respect, and in many instances become best friends, and their parents become best friends. And I think it's one of the most significant things that the Israel Tennis and Education Centers does, because it's really a model for building peace from the ground up. And God willing, we'll all live to see that one day. One of our largest social service programs that we have at the center, Shirley, is our Youth at Risk program. We call it in Hebrew, it's called Chabek, which means embrace. We're literally and figuratively embracing these children at risk. They participate, of course, the core of the program is tennis and fitness. They come twice a week to play tennis, get instruction, get fitness instruction as well. So they're taught about healthy living in the process. And they meet with a mental health counselor as a group. There's a curriculum. They're taught socialization skills. They're taught cooking and nutrition. There's a whole variety of enrichment activities and skill-based sessions that they work with on a weekly basis. Some of those sessions are crafted based on the particular challenges that the children in the particular group are facing. Many of those children come as a recommendation from the public schools or social workers in the community or youth at risk centers. And what they're seeing when these children go back to school is their improved behavior in school, in the community, and at home, improved concentration, and a rise in their academic performance and their grades. Many of them also participate in a English language fluency program. So, they learn book English in school, I like to call it. But they don't ever really have the opportunity to practice spoken English. And we do that with them on the court and in the classroom as well. English is the international language of tennis, so it's a beautiful vehicle to teach children how to converse in English, and it's a lifelong skill that will help them acquire higher level positions in the global marketplace. So that's.
And do you get the families of the kids involved? Are there programs that bring in the families to the various activities?
Absolutely. So for instance, when we start the coexistence programs each year, we bring the families in together to talk about what are the children going to do, learn, what are the what's the contract, so to speak, that and every child and parent has to sign a contract that there's particular rules that they have to follow in terms of behavior, in terms of respect, etc. But the parents become very involved and they become friends with one another. We do parent programs. We celebrate the holidays and bring the parents in together as well. So there's this blending of cultures. That tennis court becomes the melting pot for Israel and to create those friendships. Children who participate in internal tournaments and travel within the country to tennis tournaments, they travel together, they sleep in each other's homes. We had a presentation from two little girls who grew up together from age 6, one Arab, one Jewish, and Akko. They've become best friends. Their parents have become best friends, and they share holidays together. There's nothing more beautiful than that.
And of course, the programs are all completely free of any charge to the kids that are involved and their families, correct?
The social service programs are, that's correct. The children who come to afternoon tennis do pay for the program, but it's based on financial capability. If your parent is able to pay, they pay full price or they pay partial price. 50% of our children are receiving scholarships as part of the program.
Okay.
No funding either way.
Yeah. And your funding comes from a basis of contributors, personal contributors, or corporate contributors? How does that work?
Our funding comes from individual donors, from corporations, from foundations, from Jewish federations across the country as well. So it's not just in the U.S., but in Canada and other countries around the world, as well as from Israel.
Okay. And then what I read and saw on your website is that these kids actually form teams and go out of Israel to other communities around the world to compete. Is that right?
Called exhibition teams. And mostly we bring the children to North America and we travel the country with them. They're demonstrating their skills, but they're telling their stories of the impact of the tennis center on their lives. And I have a story of a young woman who's now about to go into the Israeli army that at some point during this interview I'd love to share with you.
Okay, we will in a minute. So just one more question along those lines. Have you had kids who were so good, had so much tennis talent that they went on to become professional players? Any of that? Or joined teams of the profession?
Yes. So our high performance talented athletes, they go into two different tracks. Some of them have become professional tennis players. The professional tennis players from Israel grew up at the tennis centers and were trained there. Andy Ram, Yoni Ehrlich, Dudi Sella, who's still on the circuit, Anna Smeshnova, Shachar Per, all came out of the Israel Tennis and Education Centers. And in fact, tomorrow we have a lunch and learn where Andy Ram is going to be talking about his career at 11:30 if anyone's interested.
Okay. So Phyllis, have you seen any of these Israeli tennis players in the tennis circles that you've been at?
Oh, I've seen all the professional ones. In fact, I still remember. I think that's kind of how I really got started getting close to them. Was that I had received an email. Oh, gee, I can't even think of how many years back this was. It has to be at least 10, maybe more. Well, it was kind of advertising the fact that there were going to be some exhibitions at various homes and places out on the island, Westchester. And I remember at the time writing back and saying, I think it addressed See Israel's Future. And I wrote back and I said, I would really love to see Israel's future. However, at the time that you will be playing these exhibitions, I will be watching Israel's present because I will be at the U.S. Open, and I tried to go to see all the Israeli players, and
Well, we're gonna switch to this slideshow and hope
Okay.
we'll get Phyllis back. Okay. This is the age of live stream, the age of Zoom, and these things happen. So I'm going to turn to this slideshow, and we'd love to have Jackie and Phyllis too, when she can, make some comments on them as we go along. All right, here we go. Can you see that? Can you see that, Jackie?
No.
All right. How about now?
I see Israel Tennis and Education Centers.
There you go. Right, and that is your title and your slogan: empowering children, transforming lives.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. And here again, what are the Hebrew words? I know you're fluent in Hebrew. What are the Hebrew words there?
It says Merkazei HaTennis v'Hachinuch b'Yisrael, the tennis and education centers in Israel.
And here's another. So give us an idea of the range of students just from this lovely photo.
Sure. This photo actually was taken at a cultural exchange program we did with the Legacy Tennis and Education Centers in Philadelphia. So we have two of their players and two of our players. And the little girl in the green orange shorts is from Arad, which is down south. She's a young Ethiopian girl who is now 19 years old and serving in the Israeli army. She became her mother is now the manager of our center in Arad. And her mom grew up at our center and is now giving back to a whole new generation of children who are in desperate need of the services that we provide in that very underprivileged community. The young girl on the right, Phyllis, Sheila, is the young girl whose story I'd like to tell you, Jennifer.
Go ahead, sure.
Jennifer, I first met Jennifer when she was 9 years old, when she came to the United States on an exhibition, which you just mentioned before. Her mom is Nigerian. Jennifer was born in Israel. Her mom came to Israel to create a better life for herself and her future children. And her mom was very smart because she lives in a very challenging and dangerous neighborhood in Tel Aviv. And she wanted her daughter, when she was 6 years old, to be off the streets after school. So she started Jennifer playing. The tennis center supported her because her mom did not have the funds to pay for her to participate. Jennifer had a lot of talent and has worked extremely hard. And Jennifer is now going to be going into the IDF, but she's going into the IDF as a special sports athlete. So part of the day, she will get to continue to practice her sports and become either to go professional or to go through our college preparatory program and get a scholarship to come to the United States on an athletic scholarship like many of our children do. Jennifer would not be where she is now if not for the Israel Tennis and Education Centers. And we are so proud. And that's probably the most favorite thing that I think Phyllis and I feel when we think about our children, is to see how they grow and develop and the good people they become.
Right. What a wonderful story. And I'm sure that's only one. You probably have a host of stories.
Many, many. Yes.
Okay. Let's just see some of these other slides. Well, here you go. I think this is important because it shows the importance of the social service aspect of this. Why don't you talk about this for a bit?
Sure. Well, I think a statistic that many people don't know, and it's a very disheartening statistic, is that 36% of the children of Israel live on or below the poverty line. And we aim to try and serve as many of those children as possible. We mentioned before that no child is turned away. We do serve hot meals, not in Corona time, but during normal times. We serve hot meals at the centers for children who are not able to get hot meals at home. We just started 2 years ago a program for Ethiopian children in Jaffa, where we actually hired a street worker to take these children off the streets. That's all they were doing, was hanging out on the streets after school and getting into trouble. They came to our center. They didn't have proper shoes to play. We gave them shoes. They got on court, and all of a sudden we discovered they couldn't concentrate. We asked them, why are you having trouble concentrating? They were hungry. We took them off the courts, and we realized we needed to serve them a meal every day. In the times of Corona, based on health regulations, we're bringing in packaged sandwiches and fruit so that no one touches the food. There's no germs that are transposed from one individual to another, but it's our way of trying to feed them nutritious food when they're with us at the centers. We've already talked about the fact that we are an inclusive center, that we welcome children of all backgrounds. Our 14 centers, we actually just opened a 15th center, and we'll be opening a 16th center in Sderot, which is down south on the Gaza border, and is the city that has been receiving the greatest number of missiles from Gaza. And for those children, that tennis center is a respite from the violence and the anxiety and the trauma that they experience with those rockets coming into their community.
Sure. And you already talked about the scholarships that they receive, but did you mention how they come to the U.S. and come with scholarships also?
That's the college preparatory program that I just mentioned with Jennifer, we hope will participate in.
Right.
Many hundreds of our alumni have come to the United States and have received full athletic scholarships. There's another young man who was a youth at risk from the center in Jaffa, and he has been in the United States for 2 years, and he is transferred to Drexel in Philadelphia and will be playing Division I on a full athletic scholarship. And he said to me, Jackie, I know that's my ticket to success in life.
Great. Let's go on. Are these kind of the youngest kids? Is this the kindergarten group?
They are. This group is part of our twin kindergarten, which is one of my most favorite programs. The children are so delicious. We bring one Jewish kindergarten and one Arab kindergarten together at our tennis centers with their teachers. They learn movement activities. They celebrate their holidays together, and they just become good friends. And you know, we really start with these children young. They're 4 and 5 years old, and their parents get involved. And there have been situations where sometimes the parents have been anxious about them participating in the program, but at the end of the year, the parents are thrilled that they've had the opportunity to be the founders of what hopefully will be peace in the Middle East in the future. The Children's Emergency Relief Fund. So that's really that's our fundraising campaign to raise the funds to provide the essential services to the children at our centers during Corona. We shuttered our centers in lockdown for almost 2 months based on government regulations. The entire country of Israel was in lockdown. And we quickly jumped into a communication mode with the children through WhatsApp, which is like a texting app in Israel. We sent them videos to help them create some routine for their day to practice tennis and train. And we also very quickly realized that many of the children were experiencing anxiety, depression, some trauma from their fears of what was happening around the pandemic. And we started mental health Zoom sessions with a social worker. All of our centers have reopened. 70% of our children have returned. But the 30% that haven't returned, many of them haven't returned because they don't have the funds, and we need to generate additional support to bring them back. Many of them haven't come back because their parents are fearful of the spread of the coronavirus, which has risen to 2,000 a day in Israel recently. And
yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I know because you just struck a chord there. I know for so many months we were all thinking that Israel was doing so well
Correct,
with the corona,
correct.
and now you're having a spike. Why is that? And you know what's happening? Yeah.
I think the spike has to do with the fact that many of the people who have the virus don't know they have the virus, so they're asymptomatic. My own daughter was diagnosed 2 weeks ago with corona. She lives in Jerusalem and is asymptomatic. She's an early childhood teacher, and the schools are open for early childhood because the parents need to go back to work. So it's spread through the reopening of the schools. It's spread because people don't know that they actually have the virus. And it's also spread because people are not wearing masks, and they've gone back to bars and restaurants, and they have to get, I guess they have to get a grip on things like we do here in the United States as well, in so many states.
Well, we all knew how poorly we're doing here, but we thought Israel was a beacon of light in that. Too bad. But I wanted to also ask you, when you do some of this, your social service work, like if the kids they need some little bit of psychological help.
Correct.
Are the social scientists that work with you, are they volunteers? Are they paid professionals? How does that work?
No, we hire paid professionals, paid trained professionals. We want to be able to count on them. We hired a social worker who is working with 132 groups. Those groups meet once a week. We actually purchased tablets to give to many of those children who were not in touch with us during the lockdown, because we realized they didn't have a method of communication. They didn't have a device in their home, or there was only one device for a family of 8 people, and that included a parent who was working on the device. they are now participating in mental health sessions that take place on Zoom with a trained social worker. And I will tell you that in the first session of 7-year-olds, there was a little boy who was asked to introduce himself. And he said, "Hi, I'm Joe, and 7 years old. My grandparents died during Corona, and I am scared to go out of my house because if I go out, I'm going to die."
You are taking kids out of some of their disadvantaged neighborhoods, homes, relationships, and so forth. You're not only giving them the tennis skills to learn how to learn new things and to be in work and play relationships. You're also giving them some of the social science issues, helping them with their depressions and with their other anxieties. And I'm thinking there are a lot of professional tennis people we know in history who would have done a lot better if they had some of that psychological help, don't you think?
Perhaps. One of the things we try and stress with our children is behavior comes first. Being a good person comes first. It's not about winning the game. It's how you behave, and how you, the kind of person you are in the world, and how you treat other people. So, look, we look at the children as holistic. We look at the whole child. You know, if they're hungry, they can't concentrate and they can't get the impact of the game. If they're anxious, again, that interplays with other things. And we have to provide those services now, especially in these times. We know that there has been more abuse in homes when people have been locked down. We know there's more anxiety, and at-risk youth who are on the edge anyway become even more on the edge due to the virus and all the subsequent trauma that children experience from that situation.
Sure. All right, let's go on. Let's see some of those. Now, where is this? Which stadium is this?
This is our stadium in Ramat Sharon. It's Canada Stadium. It was built very soon. Our center in Ramat Sharon was our first center. It's our national center, and it opened in probably the early 80s. And the Davis Cup tournaments used to be played here.
So, are there admission fees when people attend the games there?
Not usually. For the Davis Cup, yes, but if we have other tournaments, no.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just turned to Arthur Ashe Stadium. So explain this from your Israeli tennis center.
This was a day where we met up with Phyllis. We have a team that comes in the middle of August, and our treat to that team is the last day before they depart that evening. We usually make it on the first day of the U.S. Open, and we take them to the U.S. Open. It's a tremendous highlight for them. And the children you see in here, again, it's a team, an inclusive team. The young girl standing on the back on the right is an Arab Israeli girl. We have the little guy is a young man whose parents both came from the former Soviet Union. One drives cars, the other cleans homes, and they're struggling financially. This little boy is going to be at the U.S. Open one day. It will change his life. The guy in the middle, he was the captain of our team. He's from Beersheba, from down south. And he would like to go pro, but I think that what he'll be end up doing is going on to get his college degree first. We have our coach to the right, and we have another young girl from in the back on the left from, I don't remember, one of the African countries. Her parents also are foreign workers, and she's part of our high performance program. So you see that children who have come from a variety of different backgrounds if they're in our social impact programs and they have the talent and they have the drive and the desire to work, they become part of our top tier of talent at the centers.
Great. Now, is Phyllis back?
Yeah, finally, my Wi-Fi went out.
All right. So, Phyllis, can you, Jackie said this was a day that you met these kids. Can you just describe for us what it was like to visit with these kids that day?
Well, I think, see, I don't know exactly when my Wi-Fi cut out, but I had mentioned that some 10, 15 years ago when I mentioned after the email, I don't know, did you hear that part? That I'd gotten
Yes.
an email about seeing Israel's future.
Yeah.
And they said, I'm going to be seeing the present. And they brought the team over to me and I met them and we have been doing it. We have a ritual the first day of the open. We do this every year. And it is just so thrilling for me to meet and talk with these kids and even, there have been times that I've kind of given up my tickets for Ash and I've let them go in.
I was going to say that Phyllis has been very generous to the team, and every year she gives them the tickets to go in and see the top players in Arthur Ashe Stadium. And for these kids, they're literally over the moon to go in and see Federer or whatever celebrity is playing.
One correction, I must admit, I don't give up tickets for Roger Federer.
I just said that to
him. I want
that,
one of his matches.
I just wanted to get you excited there.
I must admit, I'm not quite that generous. I'll give them the tickets for almost anyone else, but not Roger.
So he's your favorite. I got it. He's great. All right, let's go. But this is great. It's a whole world of wonderful young people in this photo coming to their dream to see tennis at the Open.
Absolutely.
Yeah, terrific. All right, let's go on.
Again, this is another exhibition team. This photo actually took place when they were preparing to come over to the United States. Shadi on the left is a Bedouin Arab who's an alum now of our tennis centers, and his brother and sister. The entire family relocated from the Bedouin city of Rahat, which is down south near Beersheba, and moved with the assistance of the Israel Tennis and Education Centers to Ramat HaSharon, because his sister and brother are top in their age groups in the world. And they are training on a daily basis, and they're Bedouin Arabs representing Israel globally. The young man who everyone is holding in their arms is also a young boy who's from Jerusalem. He's an Arab Israeli. And he also started participating in our coexistence program and moved over to the talent development program. You already met Nir in the other slide from Beersheba. I'm trying to see who else is in here. And this is the young girl whose parents are from Ghana on the right-hand side. So you see the polyglot of the group and the diversity, and these children represent the faces of Israel.
Right. Yeah, I think many people are not aware of that, so it's wonderful to show, as you call it, this polyglot.
Yeah. Okay, another team. On the left is the mother of that little Ethiopian girl I showed you in the orange shorts. Her name is Leah. She's from Ethiopia. She actually came and walked the desert with her family. She is now the manager of our center in Arad, giving back to the next generation of Ethiopian children. And the rest of the team is pretty much the same. On the right-hand side, I'd like to introduce you to Yaniv. Yaniv is our manager of the southern region of Israel. There are 4 centers in the south of Israel. And he is the primary manager of our center in Beersheba, which is the largest center. And Beersheba is growing exponentially, so that we are also going to be physically expanding our center, because we are at capacity and don't have room to serve any more children. So we are expanding to accommodate children in need. Okay, so I keeps coming back to the stories I've told you. On the right-hand side is Karen. Karen is Shadi's sister. She is number, I think, 3 in the world in her age group. I believe she's 14 years old, and she is from the Bedouin city of Rahat. It's not typical for young Bedouin girls to become tennis stars. And she was recognized by the Ministry of Sports and Culture for Israel's 70th anniversary all around the country on placards as a young woman who is becoming a tennis star representing Israel around the world.
Wow.
Gabby,
watch out for her. Yeah, we'll watch for her.
Watch for her at the Open. Gabby, who is standing next to her, I'll tell you his story. He's deaf. And for Gabby, he's from Jerusalem, the tennis center has become his island of stability. He's a competitive tennis player, and Gabby has participated in the international deaf tennis tournaments around the world, and this year was nominated as Player of the Year. He is the ultimate of a mensch.
Wow.
And we're very, very proud of him.
Terrific. All right, here's a young woman. Mm-hmm.
Yes. I can't see her face, but this was at an exhibition, probably in South Florida. We spend 3 weeks touring different communities in South Florida to present the program and raise money to support the programs for the children. Again, another exhibition team competing in one of the, I guess, either in Florida or elsewhere around the country. This could have been in the Hamptons.
This looks like fun. What are they doing?
Yeah. This is one of our children's playgrounds. We have covered courts at every center, and we have created these movement activity playgrounds to teach children balance and a variety of gross motor skills through fun programming with different tools, you can see on the right, there's painting of steps. So they learn intricate moves utilizing these various tools. Many of these children grow up and go on to become players at our centers.
Great. And here, I guess, is where you provide a lovely buffet lunch. Do you do that now during the corona? Because the food has to be more protected, I guess, now.
No, we would not put food out like this during the corona. We will hand everyone a sealed package of food that they would open.
Okay. This was what I thought was so much fun. This is a bar mitzvah trip. So people from the States who are celebrating, here's another one, celebrating their bar mitzvahs. How do they hook up with your tennis group?
Very good question. We have offices based in New York and Florida. We work with children who do mitzvah projects that support the tennis center in one way or another, and we arrange special visits for those children, or frankly, for anyone who would like to call. Our phone number is 212-784-9200. If you're going to Israel after Corona and would like to visit one of our centers, it would be a pleasure to set that up.
Great. So that's fun. So people come, they play tennis, they have fun.
They play tennis, they get to interact with our children. It's very much children to children. They develop friends in Israel. They continue to correspond on Facebook, on Zoom, you name it, texting, WhatsApp. They know how to do everything, Instagram.
Right. Great. Fun. And this is all, you have so many different programs. This is you had an exhibition and buffet dinner. You had another program, you had a celebrity chef come in,
Yes,
right?
we did.
And
Yes, we did.
you have these activities in order to raise awareness and to raise funds, right?
That's right. The money that we raise at these various programs go to benefit the specific social service programs that I mentioned to you and scholarships for children to bring them to the tennis centers.
Right. Here, special Israeli shuk style dinner and a very special, well, it's a fundraising thing.
It was a lot of
money-
fun that evening.
Yeah. And another tennis exhibition and reception. And now you celebrated your 43rd anniversary in 2019. So I guess this is the 44th.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And finally, this is the final slide. Serving a better future for children since 1976. This is terrific. We're going to leave and come back to our discussion and have some final thoughts. So it's been wonderful taking that tour through the slides, through the various kids that you're helping, Jackie and Phyllis, with the work that you do on the board of these groups. I want you to just give me a final summary of why it's important and why it's so gratifying to help these kids and to help them through their lives. So Phyllis, you start with a final brief summary.
It's really so difficult to summarize or to put it into just a few sentences. Everything that the centers do impacts so positively on all these children that makes it all worthwhile. To see what these children become, how we have hopefully helped them through some difficult parts of their lives. It's just so hard.
I think
Phyllis
was going to say it's so heartwarming.
Right.
And I have to say, I completely agree with you. There's an expression in Judaism that says, if you save one child's life, you save the world. And Sheila, it is so true to look at each and every child and understand where they came from and what they've learned and see how they develop and grow and progress, and then how they give back to others, even when they're children. I have the chills. There's a young man who I met when I first was offered the position, and I went to Israel to see the program on the ground because I wanted to see it and believe it with my own eyes. People can tell you a story and you want to verify it's correct, right? So I go to the tennis center in Beersheba and I meet Elad. And at the time, he was 23 years old, and he is a young man with Down syndrome. And he had a huge smile on his face, and he gave me a big hug, and he's standing with his medals from the Special Olympics. And I spoke with him privately, spent some time with him, and I said, what do you want to do now that you're graduating from school, Elad? And he said, Jackie, I want to serve in the Israeli army, just like my brothers did before me. He's one of 5, the youngest. And a few months later, fast forward, Elad is in the army. He's working in a giving out supplies. And then he's doing so well that he gets inducted. And he has a uniform, and he's so proud. And he won the Medal of Excellence for the Soldier of the Year at Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, from the IDF. And there's a video of Elad, and his father is interviewed and says, I owe this to the Israel Tennis and Education Centers.
Wonderful. Well, Phyllis and Jackie, wonderful ambassadors for this program. It is very heartwarming, and it is wonderful to see in Israel, a place that we love and care about, but we want coexistence. We want the young people. We don't like the idea that there are kids that are hungry, that need social services, and your group is providing that to them in a very important way through sports, through social services, through
Definitely.
community, and it's great. So I appreciate your being on. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us, and I will see you next time. And
Yeah,
everyone else,
everyone to come to our virtual event. We're pivoting with the new Zoom, and we are having an evening of art and comedy with the acclaimed artist Michael Israel, who will be actually doing paintings on live, maybe one of even Roger Federer, Phyllis. And those paintings will be auctioned to benefit the children, as well as Sarge the comedian, who's very, very, very funny. It's July 28th. At 7 o'clock. You can go onto the website to register. The website is itecartandcomedy.com.
okay, great. Well, thank you for that. Hope you get good viewership on that program.
We will.
And we will see everyone next time on Talkback. Bye.
Pleasure to meet you.
all.
Thank you. Bye.